Hi, everyone. Welcome. We're just going to give everyone a minute or two to log in, and then we'll get started. Okay, I think we have a few people in here, so we'll get started with the webinar. So welcome everyone to a new series in our jam sessions that will focus on interactive content. Today's session will kick off with a new series called An Introduction to Interactive Content. So to get introduced, my name is Laura Pound, and I'm the supervisor of Global Customer Experience here at Rock Content. I'm going to be moderating today's session. So if this is your first jam session with us, welcome. We're really excited to have you here. Our content marketing jam sessions are a brand new mix of presentations, interviews, and webinars. They're hosted by us at Rock Content, and we feature top marketing experts and innovators. While each session covers unique topics and features different voices, they all have one common theme, which is to provide you, our audience, with advice, trends, and best practices on how to master successful premium content experiences for your business. So I'm super excited to introduce you to today's host, Stephanie Mansueto, who is Rock Content's head of content. At Rock Content, Stephanie leads our content team, a role she stepped into this summer. Before that, she oversaw the Rock Content creative services team for many years and worked with our customers to develop really awesome interactive content strategies. So before I pass it over to Stephanie, let's go through a few housekeeping items. So please feel free to share your questions in the chat box as the webinar goes on. We might answer them during the webinar, but we'll also save some for the end at the Q&A. We'll be sending out a follow-up email as well with the full presentation, as well as a link to the recording of the webinar. And I also invite you guys to connect with us on our social channels as well. So before I hand it off to Stephanie, I do want to quickly give everyone just a quick overview of Rock Content in case you're not familiar with us, just kind of what's going on with our organization and what we do. So Rock Content was founded in 2013, and as of today provides over 2,000 brands, marketers, and agencies with premium content experiences, creative services, on-demand talent, and professional training. You may have heard the news that the Scribble Live team, the Visually team, and the Ion Interactive team joined Rock Content in late 2019, so we're excited to be part of the family. And as of today, Rock employs over 500 people globally and maintains a talent network of 80,000 creative professionals. So, all right, without further ado, I'll pass it off to Stephanie. The floor is yours.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Laura. All right. So I'm really excited to kick this series off. I'm really happy that Rock saw some value in us adding this segment to our jam session. So if you've attended jam sessions in the past, you know, they've mostly been interviews. We've been having conversations with, you know, people like Rand Fishkin and Joe Paluzzi and Jason Miller, just to name a couple. Pam Didner, we have a couple coming up in the future that are really looking to be great, good interviews with industry thought leaders. But one of the things that we have not done a lot of is sessions like this, where we have a presentation and we're really like diving deep into like a best practice and educating, you know, through something, you know, a little bit more like a traditional webinar format. So I'm very excited to see this new series kick off, and kicking it off with this introduction to interactive content. So I wanted to start us off today by kind of level setting and really focusing in on what the definition is of interactive content. So about 5 or 6 years ago, Ion Interactive, which is one of the companies that was acquired by Rock, and the company that I worked at previously, was a landing page platform. And about 5 or 6 years ago, they pivoted over to interactive content. Now, at that time, interactive content was relatively new. It wasn't, this strategy that had, that was, was getting a lot of attention. It was still relatively new for most marketers. And one of our previous founders, Scott Brinker, who you probably know from either the Chief Martech blog or the Martech conference, or that insane super graphic that he creates every single year with all of the marketing technologies that have been released. He was one of the founders of Ion, and he defined interactive content as content where the audience actively participates instead of just passively reading, watching, or listening. And he also included in his description some of the common types of interactive content at that time. So at that time, interactive content included things like quizzes, assessments, calculators, and configurators. And it's funny because when I was getting ready to do this webinar, I started to do a little bit of searching, because it never feels like if you ask one marketer what interactive content is, that they're going to say the exact same thing that another marketer might say. Everybody's definitions are kind of different. So I started doing a little bit of searching to see what the market was saying, like what was the internet saying interactive content is. And in most of the platforms out there, our competitors' platforms, used Scott Brinker's description in some form. So even though he said this, 6-7 years ago, it's still kind of setting the tone for what interactive content is. But when I reached out to people on LinkedIn and on, I'm in the Content Marketing Institute Slack, I'm in a couple of different places, and I asked people, hey, what do you think interactive content is? Again, it was all over the place. Some people were saying, oh, it's just calculators, or oh, you mean quizzes like on BuzzFeed, or some people said things that were, a little bit more in line with how I define interactive content, like content that collects data or personalized content. But again, very few people said the exact same thing and defined interactive content in the same way that I would think that interactive content should be defined. So in its most simplest form, my definition for interactive content starts with a conversation that happens digitally. So what does that mean exactly? So let's think about the conversations that we have with people in person as a business, right? So most of our conversations that we have with our customers or our prospects start in a discovery phase. Whether we're doing a discovery phase for a project, whether we're doing a discovery phase for a prospect who does not know who we are yet, there's a series of questions that we ask that individual. We want to know who you are, what or who you are trying to target, depending on what we're talking about. What are you trying to solve? Why you need to solve this challenge, where you are in your journey of either educating yourself on this challenge that you have and how to solve it, or where are you in your journey on getting this project going, and how my company can help you with all of these things, with solving this challenge. And discovery is not something that usually happens over one call, right? It happens over a series of multiple calls where we learn different things, and there's always questions that are missed. I feel like every time I get on a call with a customer who's gone through a discovery phase already, there's something in that conversation that is brought up during my conversation that was not brought up in the previous conversations. And that's not because I'm really great at discovery. It's just that, things come up during conversations. So imagine if you had the opportunity to control the discovery phase with an interactive experience. So on the left here, you see this image of a screenshot of an assessment. And the title of the assessment is, how mature is your content? And then we're asking this question of, how does your team handle outdated or low performing content on your website? This is actually a question that would probably happen during a Rock content discovery phase. Because if I found out that you were not able to handle content audits using products, or if you were doing it, as I shows here, manually, and only when you have the available resources, then I would know that it was time for me to have a conversation with you about how we can help you with your content audit. So imagine that, that was missed, right? Like, imagine that you're on a call with a sales rep and it never comes up because it's just not something that they would have thought to ask you. An assessment like this can take you through a series of questions that will get to the root of your problem. So the most important thing, and I know that there's probably some sales reps on this call right now, they're saying, well, how am I going to find out that they have a problem with a content audit if they're only answering it in an interactive experience? Well, every single engagement that happens in an interactive experience can't just happen in a bubble, right? Like, just, you can't just provide the prospect or the person who's engaging with the content with a result and then just let it go. And then maybe they get on a call with a sales rep later and you ask them the exact same questions. No, in order for it to be successful, every single input that a person has with your interactive content needs to be surfaced to a marketing automation platform, to sales, so sales can have better conversations, and also put them in a marketing campaign to send them content that solves the challenge. So if we go backwards and say, okay, it's that last slide that I showed you, here is a user who told us that they are doing content audits manually. Now I know that I can get prepared during our first sales conversation, have material up that talks about why content audits should not be done manually and they should be done at a predetermined cadence. But I can also send them emails after the fact on the importance of content audits, the importance on repurposing content, the importance on keeping your content up to date because you did an audit. So that is why when I think of what interactive content is, I think interactive content is a form of content strategy. Absolutely. Just like, any other kind of content, rich material content like ebooks and white papers or blog content. It's just a form of content strategy, but it's a form of content strategy that enables marketers to create a digital dialogue between a visitor to their content and their marketing automation platform. So Laura, when we're looking at this, what are some of the weird things that you've heard that people say interactive content is, or what are some of the ones that were kind of caught you off guard?
I feel like my initial impression of interactive content before I started working here was like a BuzzFeed like style quiz, like something that requires, because I think of it sometimes as like a participant. So like it requires me to participate in some way. Like if I go to a page and it has like an infographic that like reveals information as I go through, or like something like that, where I have to interact with the content in some way, like I would have considered that interactive content, or a page that contains interactive content. But obviously, since I've started working here, it's obviously way more complex than you initially think. Yeah, definitely.
Well, I'm laughing because I didn't share my presentation with Laura ahead of today, and my next slide is going to dive into BuzzFeed because, let's talk a little bit about the different types of interactive content. Here's some of the types of interactive content that are really popular. And this changes all the time, right? So you saw what Scott Brinker said about interactive content. He included calculators, configurators, quizzes, and assessments. But over the years, more and more interactive content types have come out. So you can see now we have interactive checklists, we have resource libraries, we have content hubs, we have personalized content hubs, we have solution finders. Like it's constantly evolving, and more types of interactive content are coming out. And the good thing about our platform is it's extremely flexible. So any type of interactive content that becomes popular, we will be able to accommodate it. But as you can see, it's pretty flexible. But the most popular, and I think that the most common that we hear about, is quizzes. And I'm not surprised by that. Quizzes are lighter than assessments, which means that they're a little bit more fun and engaging. They don't really often require a lot of thought, from a user to answer the questions. They are really, really good at social share. I mean, the first quiz I ever engaged with, it probably was because I saw, someone posted on Facebook. I don't remember what it was, but it probably was something silly, like, what kind of sandwich are you? Like, it's something that does nothing for my daily life. But I needed to know, I needed to make sure that I was absolutely, not a meatball sandwich and an Italian sandwich. But, obviously not something that was super valuable to my life, but fun. But for a business who wants to create quizzes, quizzes are really good at testing a user's knowledge on a product or practice. So, think about like if I have interactive content, right? If I wanted to send a quiz out that tested your knowledge on interactive content, that would be really valuable to me. It might be light and simple, but it would be helpful to me so that I knew where to fill the gaps of your knowledge. Maybe you're really, really knowledgeable on the different types of interactive content, but not so knowledgeable on the data that you can collect. So quizzes are really great, even though they're known for being BuzzFeed social quizzes. They're still really, really impactful to businesses. And this is where we get into the BuzzFeed quizzes. So my first introduction to true interactive content was absolutely those quizzes from BuzzFeed. And I think that when you look at the quizzes that are on BuzzFeed, yes, they're light. They're really silly. They're built to share on social. They're fun. They're simple. They're engaging. They want to know if your favorite food is a bagel or a hot dog. They're not really that, heavy, but they have a high completion rate because the risk versus reward is minimal. The risk is I tell you about the fact that I like bagels over hot dogs, and you tell me that I'm supposed to end up with Newman from Seinfeld. Great. Great. It does nothing for me other than wonder what I answered that triggered this result. But hey, now I know I belong with Newman. What am I going to do with that information? Well, the first thing I'm going to do is share this on social and be like, oh my God, Newman, I belong with Newman. How did that happen? But the real thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to look for another quiz. Now I want to know which Arrested Development character I am or which member of the Simpsons family I am. Again, none of this matters. If I found out that I'm supposed to be Lisa, which I totally think I would be Lisa from the Simpson family, it's not going to change if I'm Lisa or Bart, but it's going to keep me on page longer. It's going to keep me engaging longer. And that's ultimately what BuzzFeed's goal is, right? Like they're not really trying to collect data about me so that they can send me Lisa memorabilia or try and set me up with Wayne Knight on a date because I'm supposed to be with Newman. No, they're trying to keep me on page longer so that I read more content and hopefully get them to be able to sell ads for a little bit more. There we go. We've dissected the BuzzFeed strategy. But just because BuzzFeed creates lightweight, simple content does not mean that that's the only type of quiz that's out there. This is a really good example of a quiz that is heavily researched, high quality, and not something that was just, created with no thought in mind. There really truly is no reason based on whether or not I like a bagel or a hot dog that I should end up with Newman. So that clearly was just someone making something fun, right? This quiz here from the New York Times, which was created in 2013, it's called the Y'all, Use, and You Guys Talk quiz, is really, really good. And I still love this quiz, even though it's been 7 years since it came out. It's a series of 25 questions, and throughout the assessment, throughout the quiz, users are asked questions like, would you say soda pop? Would you say soda or pop? Or soda pop, I guess. I'm sure you could probably say that. Or crawfish or crayfish or caramel or caramel. And based on your answers, it's going to tell you where you're from. And I think this is a really, really awesome quiz because it did get a lot right about myself. So because I said highway instead of freeway, it says that I'm from the Arlington area. I'm not. My family is, but I'm not. And because I said yard sale instead of garage sale, it kept me in that same region and said that I'm from Washington, D.C. But I do say sneakers instead of tennis shoes or just shoes. And because of that, it said I was from Fort Lauderdale, which is really, really close. I'm from Miami. And so I thought that was really interesting. I always assumed that everybody said sneakers, but apparently that's not the case. I'm really curious about your results, Lara, because you're from Toronto. And, obviously I'm just curious where they put you in the US.
Yeah, so definitely as a Canadian, I have no business taking this quiz, but I still had really fun, like a lot of fun doing it. And like, I just want to say that there are things in each section that like I have never even heard of. Like, I didn't know people pronounce crayon differently, but apparently that's very contentious. Yeah. But yeah, so after going through everything, it looks like my like way of speaking or my dialect is most similar to like the northern mid states, like Minnesota. Which I feel like makes sense because I think Minnesotans and Canadians are usually portrayed very similarly in pop culture. Like we're always wearing coats, we all have the same accents.
Are you
Like it's
referring to
cold.
Fargo?
Yeah, perhaps. Yeah. Pick your pop culture reference. We usually talk the same and look the same. So
I love that.
yeah.
And I love Fargo. No, I love that. And if you guys take it, don't take it during the webinar because I want you to be engaged with me. But if you do take it, share on Twitter with us what you guys got and if it was accurate, because I think it's really an interesting quiz. And I would love to see them refresh this. It takes a lot of research. They absolutely had to survey people from all over the country in order to get these regions determined and test people's speech. So I'd still really like to see something like this again because it was really great. All right, so now that we've talked a little bit about quizzes, when is the right time to use a quiz? A couple of years ago, we did this research report with Content Marketing Institute, and we got a lot of really great data about how people use interactive content. And when we asked them about quizzes, 58% of the 58% of the marketers who participated in this survey, they told us that they found that quizzes are effective at capturing user attention. I think we've pretty much made that clear, right? Like we know that it's really, really good at getting social shares. We know that it's really good at creating brand awareness. I can't even say the word quiz without thinking of BuzzFeed. So that absolutely worked. But it's also really good at identifying knowledge gaps, as we talked a little bit about, so that you can fill those gaps with more information or knowledge. And it's good at increasing engagement. And also it can add some fun to a blog article. So I would really use quizzes for that purpose, right? Use them to build brand awareness and to fill knowledge gaps. They're really, really effective at that. And 58% of marketers agree. So here's a tip to create some strong quizzes. If possible, do not gate the results of a quiz. We find that quizzes are really great in those early conversations in that awareness phase of the buyer journey. And so instead of gating the results of a quiz, we absolutely recommend trying to push users to that next piece of content to further their knowledge and get them a little bit deeper into the buying journey. Now, I say this, and I should have put like a little asterisk there, because one of the things that I think is incredibly important with every type of interactive content that we're going to talk about today is that you should consider A/B testing everything. Because yes, I have the benchmark data to tell you that historically most quizzes do not receive high conversion rates if you gate the full results. But I'm not going to tell you that there haven't been customers who have proved me wrong. And that's because, we don't know yet what resonates with your audience. All I can tell you is what I have seen happen. So we definitely recommend, if you have the ability to, try to A/B test gate placement. Maybe, if you have to put the lead form on the results of your quiz, try and do either a partial gate where maybe you tell people, for example, that New York Times quiz that we were just showing, maybe show them only one thing, right? Like you said sneakers and that aligns with Fort Lauderdale, ungate the rest of the results. And then maybe another one where you give them two, just to try and find that sweet spot, because you don't know yet what's going to resonate with your audience if you're just, starting to create quizzes. So try to not gate if you can, but if you absolutely have to, let's try and test out what's going to work. Keep your quizzes short. We try to aim for no more than 10 questions. That's really like that sweet spot. 5 to 7 is ideal, but no more than 10. Yes, if you have something that's really, really, really valuable in research, like that New York Times quiz that I showed you, which had 25 questions, you can ask more, but you better have a really, really good output for them, because that's a big commitment on their part. Always add a progress bar. The progress bar is going to show the user how far they've come in their journey with the quiz or with your experience. And then that way they know what they have left to commit to. We like to also put this on the first page of the experience. So, you can say like, take our 15 question assessment, take our 15 question quiz. New York Times did that. As soon as I landed on the page, it said answer 25 questions to learn where your speech is, how you speak tells where how you speak. Yeah, this is bad. Tells you where you're from based on how you speak. That took a long time. And that tells you the risk versus reward, right? The risk is I have to answer 25 questions. So that's a time commitment on my part, 25 questions that I'll have to go through. But the reward is at the end of this quiz, I will know without any question. I mean, I already know where I'm from, but I'll have a really cool graphic to say, oh, you say this, that's more in line with Arlington, but you say this, and that's more in line with Fort Lauderdale. So putting that risk versus reward is pretty important on the front of any quiz, no matter how long it's going to be. And because quizzes perform so well in social share, we absolutely recommend that you add social share both to the results page and even on the beginning of the experience as well. All right, so moving along to assessments. Now, I don't like to play favorites with my interactive content, but as a marketer and a content strategist, I will say that assessments, I mean, don't tell infographics, but assessments are arguably one of my favorite types of interactive content. And I think you'll agree with me when I tell you why. Because as a marketer, as a strategist, I love data. The more I can know about you, the better I can target you and give you the content that you actually want. I don't want to send content to our prospects and customers that's not going to help them. I want to send them what they're looking for, and the best way for me to do that is to learn about them. And assessments are a great way for me to let you, as the prospect or the customer or the random user, tell me naturally. And I just think that they're really good at allowing people to share information that they want to share, but get something out of it. It's a great way to have a digital dialogue. So assessments can tell me, the end user, or you, how well you're doing at something. So this example that I have on the screen right here was created by Demandbase. And what they were looking to do was help their customers and prospects evaluate their ABM marketing stack. So imagine that you want to, create an ABM strategy, but you really just don't know what tools to use in order to do that. So this assessment, this evaluator, you can go through a series of questions and tell it your challenges, right? Like I'm struggling to create a list that tells me where I should focus my energy, or I'm struggling to identify, what companies fit my ABM strategy's criteria. At the end of this assessment, it gives you a clear path to how you can implement technologies throughout your ABM strategy. So valuable and really, really great assessment. One of the most popular types of assessments, though, is the maturity assessment. And I think that these are, really, really cool. You saw that I showed one earlier that we did, a content marketing maturity assessment. But what it does is it takes users through a series of questions about what they're doing today to put them in a bucket of maturity. So yes, you can say, immature, mature, somewhat mature, something like that. It kind of almost falls into a crawl, walk, run category. So like you would answer a question about what you're doing, and combining all of your answers, it would tell you that you're in the crawl phase, which would be the most immature. You're in the walk phase, which would be the somewhat mature. And then you're in the run phase, which would be the mature. The goal here is to give you tips on how to move to that next phase. And one of the things that we absolutely recommend is to give users content to help them improve and to help them move to that next phase as well. So when to use assessments. From that same report that I mentioned earlier, we asked the individuals that were included, when do you feel like assessments are most impactful? And 52% of them said that they found that assessments were most impactful at the awareness stage. So that makes sense to me. I talked about assessments in replace of traditional discovery earlier, and discovery usually happens in the awareness phase. So, really thinking about how to ask users questions to allow them to self-assess their need for a problem. Because if we think about what happens in the awareness phase, people know that there's a challenge that they need to solve, but they haven't quite yet figured out what they need to do to solve that challenge. So they're really just starting to get aware. They're just starting to do their research, and an assessment could give them that opportunity to find information that is relevant to their problem. So why create assessments? They allow users to self-assess their need for our product or our service. We have plenty of assessments that we've created out there that don't really talk about us. So we have that content maturity assessment. You're really asking people to measure the maturity of their content marketing. We're not saying measure the maturity of your content marketing based on what Rock is going to do for you. It's really personalized to the user. And then at the end, you can tell them, hey, your content marketing is immature. Here's some things we think you could do. Or you can say, hey, your content marketing is pretty mature. Here's some resources that could help you become even, better. They also help marketers and individuals that use them identify areas of improvement. So maybe you're really good at creating blog content, but not really good at creating rich material content. And so an assessment could maybe help you identify that. One of the things that we think is really important too is recommending those assets based on the user's challenge or maturity. So if you have someone who falls into the immature category in a maturity assessment or the crawl category, you don't want to show them the same content that you would show someone who is in the run category, because they are in two different places. Someone who is very mature in their marketing does not want to see the same ebook that someone who is just getting started sees. And so with an assessment, you can absolutely show personalized content. So some tips for creating really good assessments. We recommend partially gating the results to pique users' interest. So, you can provide like a little taste up front. So, going back to that content maturity assessment, you can say, and what our strategy is we tell you where you fall. So you are immature, you are mature, and then we partially gate the results. And then the gated results have a tip for every single thing that you told us. So if you told me that you struggle with your content workflow, I provide a tip. So, that is a lot of information and valuable content for you and worth that form completion, because I'm going to actually give you actionable things that you can do to get better. Also include those assets to help them improve and keep them engaged with you, because then if they read your ebook, they're further educating themselves and creating an awareness of who you are. So definitely something to do. Same thing with the quizzes. Try to keep it short. You can ask more questions in an assessment than a quiz. Sometimes we would say that, 12 is okay, but the fewer the better. And when it comes to your choices, try not to be too specific. You want your user to find one that aligns with them as close as possible. But if you're too specific, then there's a good chance that they're going to be like, well, this isn't relevant to me because I don't have that exact problem. All right, moving along to calculators. Everybody loves a calculator. Calculators are really great because they give us a real dynamic output of potential savings based on real numbers that we put in. And marketers love calculators because they give us insight into so many details about a business. So if you think about some of the calculators that you've seen out there, people want to know the real potential savings. So they're going to be honest. They're going to put in real numbers. They're not going to just put in a bunch of zeros so they can get to the end of the calculator. They're going to actually tell you the real costs of certain things that they're doing. So you can have calculators where you're asking people to give you their revenue so that you can show them a potential savings, or something that they can do better. They might tell you their budget or even specific expenses, and all of those things are really valuable when you're trying to create a case as to why someone would want to partner with you. So one thing to think about is that calculators are often the last step in a buying journey. They're the place where, someone is going to say, I just want to know how much this is going to cost me. So they've already moved from the awareness phase. They figured out what their challenge was, and they got to the consideration stage where they were considering all of the ways that they can solve that challenge. And now they're in the decision stage. And this is where it really comes down to either how much is your product going to cost me, and how much is it going to give me back in return? And also, it could also be how much time am I going to save too? Because, calculators are not only about cost savings. There's a lot of calculators out there that are also about time saving, because time is money. So it's really important that, we all cut down on our expenses, not just cost wise, but also time wise. So this is really, really great at the end of the buyer's journey. And the most popular one I would say though is definitely ROI calculators. They're really popular for our customers that are in the B2B space, because you want to show your customers and prospects the return on investment, whether that return on investment is going to be cost or whether it's going to be time. So some tips for creating strong calculators. By the time a user gets to your calculator, you should have already collected their lead data. So we definitely recommend not gating it. If you have sophisticated marketing technologies, you probably already know who this user is while they're engaging with the calculator. But if you do have to put a gate on a calculator's results, my recommendation, I've shared this with customers before, is just ask for their email. Try and keep it short. They want to get to the information as quick as possible, and a long form is just going to make them, frustrated. So try and keep it as short as possible. And I think this is something that's really for marketing and sales teams that have, marketing and sales alignment. We should create two versions of calculators and assessments. Honestly, would be really great, because most of the time the calculators that you create are going to have their marketing strategy, right? You're going to probably have them on your website. You might use them in your content material. They might be in an email drip. But individual sales reps are probably going to pull that calculator up as well, whether they do it on a call with a customer in real time and they use it for their own information, or if they send it to a sales rep following a call, a prospect following a call. So we try to have two versions. So the thought here is that we would have a different message on the sales version than we would maybe on the customer version, or we could even have like the sales reps information on the sales version. So try and track them separately, and this way you can also encourage the sales team to use it, because any marketing team can tell you we can create really great stuff, and sometimes we don't know for sure if sales is using it. And apologies if any of my sales reps are listening. I'm not talking about you, I promise. And then one of the most important things as well is keeping it fun. We've all been engaged with a calculator that was just so dry and not really, engaging. It's not, fun to interact with. Now, because it's bottom of the funnel content, we do want to be like straight to the point and not get, lost in creating some sort of immersive experience. But if you can add like nice graphics or subtle animations, or what would be really great, a beautiful result page with something that can be sent to, someone's boss, that's even better. So one of my favorite strategies with a calculator is after a user gets to the results page and we show them, hey, our product or our service can save you this much money, a call to action that says email my boss can make a beautiful experience that can be sent off to that person's boss to get the boss bought in. Because we all know most of our prospects are only one person in the buying journey. All right. So interactive infographics and assessments probably compete with each other for the most popular types of interactive content that we create here at Rock Content. And again, I get it. Interactive infographics are beautiful. They're fun. They're, single page experiences with bold graphics and data points. They're really good at engaging users with valuable information. And most of us have been looking at infographics for a while, right? Even the static ones. They're graphical and full of information. Here, our customers use infographics to increase brand awareness, and they're more engaging than static infographics. So they often include data from research. This example, which is technically a GIF, but it's not working. I'm sorry about that. But it's a infographic that was created from a report. So we'll post the links to these, but this was a report that Deltec did, and the call to action was to download the full report. And this was a really beautiful way to show the data points. And it also has the little tweets in it, so more people visited it. So some tips for creating strong interactive infographics: don't gate them. Do not gate an infographic. It's just like gating a blog. Don't do it. They're top of funnel pieces. They're really used just for getting people's information. But you can use an infographic as a replacement for a traditional landing page. So that's kind of what Dell Tech did, right? So that interactive infographic that we just showed you from Dell Tech that was for a report, more than likely their original strategy was, let's put a landing page up with a form, and then if a user completes the form, they get the report. But now they have this interactive infographic that pulls information from the report, and users can like click around and engage with it, get a little bit bought in, almost like a carrot being dangled at them of like, this is the kind of information that's in this report. And then there's a call to action to download the full report. So that's a really smart way to use infographics to as a lead gen driver, but don't gate the infographic. And when possible, absolutely add in test your knowledge quiz questions to increase engagement. So we like to put like true false questions or like did you know type questions into our interactive infographics using information from static assets. Really smart way to keep people on page and engaged with your content. All right. So interactive ebooks and white papers. So interactive ebooks and white papers can really transform a static PDF into something more engaging and fun. They'll often have gated chapters, and they will often have a goal of some lead gen, right? So interactive ebooks and white papers are usually, from what we create, condensed versions of much larger static pieces. So this example that's up on the screen right now is a Salesforce interactive ebook. There's only 5 chapters in the interactive ebook. The original experience had, I believe it was 31, and it was really robust. And instead of doing a traditional landing page where a user has to complete a form and then access the robust static asset, we created a teaser piece to get them engaged. So there's, this nice segmentation path on the landing page where the user can identify which industry they're interested in. And then when they get onto the interior pages, there's all these really beautiful interactive components and fun animations. And that call to action to download the full ebook is always present. So some tips for creating strong ebooks and white papers. We definitely recommend that you give a little bit away before you ask users to complete a form to access the full ebook. This is give them maybe 1 or 2 chapters and then encourage them to complete a form to get the full access. We definitely recommend A/B testing this. A/B test the landing page of your ebook or white paper, or A/B test the gate placement. There's been times where we've launched an ebook for our customers and maybe it wasn't performing exactly how we wanted it to. So we launched an A/B split test with different imagery, and that is what did it. So honestly, it's the best way for you to find out what's going to resonate with your audience. So absolutely try to A/B test not only the landing page look and feel, but also the gate placement. And then also keep that call to action present throughout the entire experience, because an ebook or a white paper is multiple pages and you don't want to have it at the beginning and the end and that's it. Keep it on every single page of your interactive ebook or white paper. All right, so that's a lot. And we didn't even cover every single type of interactive content. So you're probably thinking, I'm talking so much about interactive content, I might tell you to get rid of your static content, right? No, 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 no. Not all content should be interactive. I do not think that at all. It's funny because, I've been working in interactive content since 2015. And recently I've seen this trend on some of the channels that I follow where there's interactive content strategists coming out and they're saying, kill the PDF. Like, get rid of the PDF, no more PDFs. We're only going to create interactive content. And I just do not subscribe to that thought process at all. And I honestly think that most marketers would agree with me. In that same report that we did a couple of years ago, we asked our marketers, is interactive content more effective at capturing a user's attention than static content? 46% of marketers said yes, it is. It is more effective than static content. But then we talked to them about combining traditional and interactive, and they said that 48% said that enhances the experience. So that tells me that when you have an interactive experience and a static experience working together, you are enhancing the customer experience. You are enhancing the content experience. You are giving them a journey to go on. So to me, that content just performs better together. It's an easier and better way to create a digital dialogue. So if you have a static ebook that dives into tips and tricks on a topic, I don't want you to get rid of it and just make it interactive. I want you to look at it and find an opportunity to make something new from it. And so if you had this ebook, like this content strategy for bloggers ebook that's on the screen, I would say, let's make an assessment out of that, but let's keep the ebook. Let's keep the ebook as part of the strategy. And we can use the assessment to promote the ebook, or we can use the ebook to promote the assessment. So if you think about the customer life cycle with content works throughout the entire customer life cycle. We can do quizzes and awareness, we can do infographics, and static fits in here along with interactive. I feel that content of all types can move customers through that life cycle. So when we're talking about that ebook before, I said, like, hey, don't kill your PDF, right? So like, let's say that you have this static PDF on this content strategy for bloggers. You have your users go to a landing page, maybe they saw it on social, either way, they complete a form, they download it. If this was you and you said to me, hey, we have this ebook, what should we do with it? My first recommendation would be, that's the ebook, the user downloads it, put them in an email drip campaign. 2 days later, let's send them an assessment that asks them to assess their blog's content strategy maturity. When they do that, they'll be able to see where they are. And then your main sales qualified lead conversion would be offering them strategic support. So we have this user who started out as a marketing qualified lead when they downloaded your ebook. Then they come back and they take the assessment to assess who they are and where they are. Now you're collecting data about them even more. You know who they are, but now you're collecting data on what's their problem. And then once you have the data on what their problem is, you can go ahead and say, hey, I can help solve that problem for you. Here's my information. Let's get in touch. So we started out with a marketing qualified lead, and we quickly were able to move them to a sales qualified lead after only a few touch points. Now, the good thing is about interactive content is that's not the only strategy that we have to go with, right? So maybe we try something different and we send users to the assessment first instead. So maybe we do a social media campaign where we allow bloggers to assess their content marketing maturity. They go through the assessment, they find out that they're immature, then you send them then you recommend that ebook on the results page, and then a couple days later you offer your services. So it's not this can work in both ways, and each way we are still keeping that static asset as part of our content strategy. So my next webinar is actually going to dive pretty deep into how to repurpose static content as interactive. And I'm really looking forward to that because it's one of my favorite things to do. So what do you need to get started with interactive content? Well, first, I already said it, start with your existing content. Nobody should be going right to the drawing board to start from scratch. Then we need to define our goals, right? So with any type of content strategy, interactive, static, blog, it doesn't matter. All of it has to start with a goal. And one of the things you should be asking yourself is, what is interactive content going to help me solve? I hope that you're thinking it's going to help you solve a lot. And I cannot recommend this enough. And I'm not saying this to you because I work at Rock Content and Rock Content has a platform. I'm saying this to you because I'm a marketer who always feels like I have too many things to do and not enough resources to get everything done. I cannot imagine adding interactive content to my marketing strategy and trying to do it from code. If you want to scale your production and scale your content production, leaning on an interactive content platform over custom dev is going to allow you the opportunity to create content consistently. It's just the facts. And no shameless plugs. It's not so shameless. It is whatever. Watch more of my webinars. I've been creating these webinars since 2016. So there's a lot out there. And we have more coming up. So there's going to be a lot of interactive content education for you guys to get you started. I mean, today we're just talking about the introduction. The next one, we're going to be talking about how to repurpose. And I have plans all the way up to how to build an interactive content team. So these are going to be really helpful. And I definitely recommend that you watch them because I would like to educate you. So here's a little description on our next webinar. It's going to be a good one. So I definitely hope that you guys attend. And I see that we're getting close to the 10-minute mark. So I want to pop over to the next slide. This is something that I would like you guys. I love that this is the only gift that actually ended up working out of all of the gifts that I included in this. At least it's the best one. So I wanted to offer something to you guys. And it also helps me because I want you to know that there's opportunity to find interactive opportunities in your static content. So I'm asking if you guys are interested to have some of you guys share with me static assets that you are really, really proud of that you would love to see interactive content come from. Maybe it's something that you created a long time ago and you're just struggling to find ways to repurpose it. If you want to share that with me, everybody that shares an asset with me will get an idea, but I'm going to take 5 of them and highlight them in this next webinar. If you want me to hide your logo, 100% okay with it. You know, whatever guidance you want to provide with me, that's fine. But this is a great way for us to really do almost like a workshop, right? Instead of doing a traditional webinar, let's do a workshop together. Let's look at some static assets, and I will walk you through what I would do as an interactive content strategist to get more life out of it. The type of content that I'm looking for are, blogs or ebooks, or if you have an infographic, it really doesn't matter. I have come up with interactive content ideas from an email. So whatever you got, send it my way. I will give you an idea, and then we will maybe include it in our webinar on the webinar is on the 15th, but I'd like to have all of these by Friday, October 9th, close of business. So I want to end our session today with this quote. I really love this quote. I found it during my research for this webinar. And I think that even though he's not speaking about interactive content in it, William Komowich, who is the CEO of Cyber Alert, said that content marketing is becoming less about the words that you put on a page and more about the experiences that you create for your customers and for your consumers. And interactive content is an incredible way for us to create an experience. It's a great way to move our customers or our prospects through the buying cycle in a way that almost puts them in control. And I just really thought that this was a great message for why interactive content is going to be valuable in your strategy. And I think, yeah, that is my last slide. So thank you, guys. Let me go ahead. I'll stop sharing so I can see you.
Thank you, Stephanie. That was awesome. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
It looks like we did get a few questions over the course of the webinar, but as I'm reading this out, I encourage anybody who has any additional questions for Stephanie or comments or anything like that to post them in the chat. Now is the time. So the first one that we have here is a comment from Will. He said, I'm a small business owner. My first time hearing about interactive content was on your website, and it was for the invitation to this event.
Well, thank you, Will.
That's awesome.
Thank you. And if you want to hear more, I will be love to talk to you about it. And I will send you some quizzes from BuzzFeed to take so we can all find out. I know in one of my emails that I sent to everyone, I said that I had taken and this was like a recent BuzzFeed quiz. So you can tell, like, even though I'm in marketing and in B2B marketing, I'm still taking ridiculous quizzes on BuzzFeed. It was what kind of taco are you? So again, like, I don't only care about what house I should be in Hot Harry Potter. Like, I really care about what kind of taco I am. So I'll send those your way, Will. You're gonna
yeah, I'm gonna need that too.
It's like a comfort food, it's just an interesting time right now. I would rather find out what kind of taco I am than read real news.
Yeah. I feel that for sure. All right. We have a second question here from Marina. What is the easiest type of interactive content to create?
This can be a challenging question. And the reason is what are your skills right now, right? So I'm a content strategist, but I'm not a designer. So the Rock content platform, the Ion platform, has templates to help you create interactive content experiences. And I can create an infographic in the Ion platform using the template, but I'm really, really good at creating assessments. And the templates help me create those templates or create those quizzes and assessments as well. So it really just depends. It depends on, obviously, do you have that content already? If you have that ebook or white paper, that's going to really help you, get your experience moving forward. I will say this, that when we sign on a new customer and they're new to interactive content entirely, they maybe have limited resources and they don't, want to leverage our services to build their first experience, I almost always suggest infographics. And the reason is because it's something that you probably can create pretty quickly. It's probably something that you already have on hand in terms of content and copy. But it varies it varies a lot. And it all goes back to, what do you already know? What content do you already have today, and what is your goal? Like your first interactive experience, if your goal is lead gen, I'm not going to tell you an infographic, and I'm not going to tell you a quiz. If you were paying attention, you know that I'm going to say don't do that. But if your goal is lead gen and you have an ebook, I might tell you to create that ebook. But if you are looking to create interactive content and you want to get started quickly, that's where that platform conversation comes back into place, right? Like, creating something from scratch with custom code is not going to be easy. So look for a platform that is going to have the templates and the support available to you to ramp up quickly. I know a platform.
So do I. Yeah. And as somebody who also is not a designer, I can definitely vouch for templates. They have saved my life more than once.
There's no shame in templates. I mean, I'm really sorry if there's any designers on this call, but I love Canva. It has enabled me as a non-designer obviously I'm going to reach out to the design team when I need something big and something that I know is like, don't mess it up, Stephanie. But it helps me. It helps me, scale. But, obviously you guys still have your place. I'm sorry. I love a designer too.
Awesome. We got one more question here from JP. Is your suggestion 50-50 static and interactive content?
I think that some strategies are going to have more static than interactive. I also think that some content should just never be turned interactive. So I really also think that kind of varies on your strategy. And I hate saying that. I know that that's like the worst answer or worst, answer ever to say. It all depends. But like, for example, I've had some customers that have come to me and said, well, I want to create a data sheet in interactive. And I'm like, no, don't do that, because the audience that wants the data sheet, they don't want to have to click around to get, information. They want to have it in a static asset. So I really truly think it depends on the type of user experience or the customer experience that you're looking to create. I don't think it's always going to be 50-50. I think that you might find yourself creating campaigns that are fully interactive and then campaigns that are fully static. It really just depends. But if you want help, send me that content and I'll give you an idea.
Perfect. All right. Looks like that's all we have for today. Thanks everyone for joining. We really appreciate it. And we'll see you on October 15th.
Yes. Thank you guys. Have a good day. Bye, Laura.
Thanks everyone.